Hello, my name is Father Bob Maloney. Today I'd like to talk with you about the notion of systemic change. At a meeting in Rome in 2007, the Commission for Promoting Systemic Change made a presentation to the heads of many of the branches of the Vincentian family and proposed that systemic change be the family's common theme for the next several years. In response, the Mother General, Sister Evelyn Frank, remarked, "I find this theme very interesting. It gives a name to what so many in the family are already trying to do, and it clarifies and concretizes the idea." It was clear to Sister Evelyn, and it's clear to all the members of the Commission, that the underlying idea of systemic change is already at work in many projects within the Vincentian family, even if the process has not yet been defined step by step. So let me say a word about the basic idea. Today, those working among the poor speak more and more about the need for systemic change. In order to understand a systemic change approach better, some analysis of the idea may be helpful. Essentially, a system is a whole, a unified composite of things that work together. As a system's parts interact, they affect each other constantly, either for better or for worse. Today, for example, scientists focus continually on systems. Astronomers view the universe as a system. If a star explodes, everything else in the universe feels the effect. Doctors view the body as a system. If my blood is diseased, it affects everything else in my body. Economists and sociologists view society as a system. And so, if the economic and social elements that make up society function together positively, people thrive. But if one or several of those elements are functioning badly, the whole system begins to break down. So, basically, systemic change thinking affirms that everything is connected to everything else. Recognizing this, it becomes clear that in order to change the situation of the poor, we must focus not only on one particular problem, like supplying them with food, important though that might be at times, but on the overall circumstances of the lives of the poor. In fact, experience teaches us that quick fix solutions, even though they're temporarily helpful, prove inadequate in the long run. Let me give an illustration about how systemic change works. Each of us lives in a socio-economic system whose parts interact with each other. If the system's working well, it favors personal growth, but if not, it thwarts growth and accelerates decline. If, for example, I don't have a job, I don't earn money. If I don't earn money, I can't buy food for my family. If my son doesn't have sufficient food, he suffers malnutrition. If he suffers malnutrition, he can't study well. If he can't study well, he won't graduate from school. And if he doesn't graduate from school, he probably won't get a job. And if he doesn't have a job, he doesn't earn money, and so the circle begins again. The challenge for a systemic change thinker is to know when and how to break the circle. In the book that the Commission has written, Seeds of Hope, Stories of Systemic Change, we tell the stories of a number of projects where systemic change has really taken place. For example, in a project initiated by Father Pedro Opeka called Akamasoa, he began by creating jobs. These in turn generated income. From that income, gradually people were able to buy food, build homes, and send their children to school, so their lives improved dramatically. In other stories about systemic change projects, the point of intervention is different. For example, in a project in San Jose de Ocoa in the Dominican Republic, water was the key. Clean water improved health. and irrigation brought crops that provided nourishment and also revenue. Revenue led to better homes and sanitation. In a third project, the Homeless People's Federation of the Philippines, microcredit was the key. Microcredit enabled people to buy land, build homes, and organize other projects like digging wells and creating a sewage system and opening shops. So the point of intervention in these three stories was different, but in each story, real systemic change took place. Let me conclude by mentioning some criteria for systemic change projects. It's evident from what I said that not every project involves systemic change. In fact, many good projects address urgent, immediate needs, but they don't go beyond that. Different from those projects, a systemic change has, among other things, the following characteristics. There are four. First, wide-ranging social impact on the life of the poor person. This is the most basic characteristic of systemic change. That is, the project helps change the overall life situation of those who benefit from it. Second, sustainability. The project helps create the social structures that are needed for a permanent change in the lives of the poor, like employment, education, housing, the availability of clean water and sufficient food, ongoing local leadership, and so on. Third, replicability. The project can be adapted to solve similar problems in other places. The philosophy or the spirituality that grounds the project, the strategies it employs, and the techniques that it uses can be applied in a variety of circumstances. Concretely, this is demonstrated when the project actually spreads beyond its initial context and is put into effect successfully in settings other than the place where it began. The project in San Jose de Ocoa has, in fact, spread to 120 villages. And fourth and finally, innovation. That is, the project brings about social change by transforming traditional practice. Change is achieved through the development and implementation of a pattern-changing idea. To use a phrase often attributed to Albert Einstein, systemic change thinking helps us to learn to see the world anew.